I remember the day my world shattered. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day that felt ordinary until it became anything but. I found the messages on her phone, the ones that revealed a truth I had been blind to. My heart raced, and a cold sweat broke out on my brow as I read the words that would change everything. They were intimate, filled with affection, and signed off with a name I didn't recognize. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the air leaving my lungs in a rush, leaving me gasping for breath as the reality of her betrayal sunk in. The house felt different in that moment. The walls that had once echoed with laughter and warmth now closed in around me, suffocating me with a sense of impending doom. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second a reminder of the life we had built together, now crumbling to dust before my eyes. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the coffee table, my mind racing as I replayed the moments leading up to this revelation. The missed calls, the late nights at work, the sudden urge to go out with friends. How had I been so naive? I felt a surge of anger mixed with confusion. How could she do this to me, to us? I had poured my heart into our marriage, believing we were a team, partners in everything. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me, and I felt lost, like a ship without a compass adrift in a stormy sea. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling, and stared at the screen as if it held the answers to questions I didn't even know how to ask. Images of our wedding day flashed through my mind. The vows we exchanged, the promises made, the laughter and love that had once filled our lives. How had it come to this? I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized that those memories were now tainted. The warmth of her smile, the way she would curl into me when we watched movies, all of it felt like a cruel joke. I thought of her laughter, the way it used to light up my world. Now it felt like a distant echo, haunting me. In that moment of despair, I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shake her out of whatever spell had led her to this point. But another part of me recoiled at the thought. What would I say? How could I articulate the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to consume me? Instead, I found myself holding the phone tightly, my knuckles turning white as I struggled to process the betrayal that had just shattered my reality. I felt like a fool. I had trusted her completely, and now here I stood, a man betrayed. My mind raced with thoughts of revenge, not that I believed in it, but the idea of making her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused me was tempting. I wanted her to understand the devastation she had inflicted, to see the hurt in my eyes and feel the weight of guilt crash down on her. But I was also terrified of what that would mean for me. Would I become someone I didn't recognize, driven by anger and resentment? As the sun began to set outside, casting long shadows across the room, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. This was not the end, I told myself. I could either let this destroy me or I could find a way to rise from the ashes. But for now, all I could do was sit there in silence, the phone still clutched in my hand, my heart heavy with the burden of betrayal. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing: everything was about to change. In the days that followed, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, each one more intense than the last. I replayed the moment of discovery over and over in my mind, like a movie stuck on a loop. It was as if I were living in a fog, unable to see clearly, but feeling everything all at once: anger, sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of inadequacy. I spent hours lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering how things used to be. I thought back to the early days of our relationship, where everything felt perfect. We were young and in love, our future stretched out before us like a blank canvas, waiting to be painted with our dreams. I remembered how we used to talk for hours about our aspirations, our hopes for a family, and the adventures we wanted to embark on together. I had thought we were building a life together, brick by brick, but now it felt like I was left with a pile of rubble. I found myself questioning everything about our relationship. Was I not enough? Did I fail her in some way? These thoughts gnawed at me, and I felt a sense of shame creeping in. I had always prided myself on being a good husband, attentive and caring. I had made sacrifices for her, put her needs above my own, and yet here I was, betrayed and broken. My heart sank deeper as I recalled the signs I had missed, the subtle shifts in her behavior that I had brushed off as mere stress or fatigue. The late nights, the sudden need for space, and the way she had become distant. I had been blind, and that realization cut me deeper than any words could. I think back to the moments we shared, the quiet dinners, the laughter during movie nights, the way we would hold hands while walking in the park. Those memories felt tainted now, like a beautiful painting splattered with mud. I felt anger bubbling within me, not just towards her but towards myself for being so naive. How could I have let this happen? I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand answers for the questions that haunted me. But I also knew that confronting her would only lead to more pain, more heartache, and I wasn't sure I could bear that. As I sat in the living room, the shadows growing longer as night fell, I felt a surge of emotions that I couldn't quite articulate. I wanted to confront her, to lay bare my heart and expose the wounds she had inflicted, but part of me feared the confrontation. What if she didn't care? What if she had already moved on? The thought made me feel even smaller, and I sank deeper into despair. I began to reflect on the concept of trust, how it is built over time but can be shattered in an instant. I had trusted her implicitly, and that trust had been weaponized against me. I thought about the nature of love and how it can be both a source of strength and vulnerability. My heart ached at the thought that love could lead to such betrayal. I had given my all to her, and now I felt like a fool for believing in our fairy tale. Days turned into nights as I wrestled with my emotions, and I found myself spiraling into a dark place. I became a ghost in my own home, going through the motions of daily life while feeling utterly hollow inside. Friends reached out, concerned about my sudden withdrawal, but I couldn't bring myself to share the truth. The shame was too heavy, too consuming. I felt like I was living in two worlds, the one where I was a devoted husband and the one where I was a man betrayed, struggling to find my footing. But as the days dragged on, something began to stir within me, a flicker of determination. Deep down, I knew I couldn't allow this betrayal to define me. I had to find a way to reclaim my life, to rise from the ashes of my shattered dreams. I began to contemplate what that might look like. I hadn't just lost my wife, I had lost a part of myself in the process. I needed to rediscover who I was apart from the labels of husband and partner. With every passing day, the weight of my heartbreak transformed into a sense of resolve. I didn't want to be a victim of her choices. I wanted to take back control of my life. Anger was a powerful motivator, but I knew I needed to channel it in a way that would lead to growth rather than destruction. I started to think about what I truly wanted for my future, and for the first time since the betrayal, I felt a flicker of hope. This was not the end of my story. It was merely a turning point. I would not allow her actions to dictate the course of my life. I would rise up, stronger and more resilient than before. But to do that, I had to make a choice to confront my pain and transform it into something powerful. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening. I was sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee growing cold beside me, when I glanced out the window and saw the world outside drenched in rain. The droplets tapped against the glass, creating a rhythm that matched the turmoil. In my heart, it felt like the universe was weeping with me, mourning the loss of what had been. But in that moment, something shifted within me. I could either drown in this sorrow or learn to swim against the tide. I put down my coffee and took a deep breath. I needed to take control of my life. I was tired of feeling like a victim, tired of letting her betrayal dictate my happiness. I had spent enough time wallowing in despair, and now it was time to make a choice, to reclaim my power. I realized I had two paths before me. I could succumb to bitterness and anger, allowing them to consume me, or I could rise from this devastation and build a new future, one that was mine alone. That night I made a decision. I would no longer be defined by the betrayal of my wife. Instead, I would channel my pain into something productive. I started to jot down ideas in a notebook, a mix of goals, aspirations, and dreams that I had long neglected. I had always wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the confines of my routine. I had dreamed of taking up painting, a passion I had set aside in the name of adulthood. I wanted to reconnect with friends I had lost touch with, to rediscover the joys of life that I had pushed aside while focusing on my marriage. I made a list of things I wanted to do, places I wanted to visit, and people I wanted to connect with. Each item on that list felt like a small victory, a step away from the darkness that had enveloped me. I decided to focus on my health, both physical and mental. I had let myself go in the past few months, and I knew that if I wanted to rebuild my life, I needed to start with myself. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I joined a gym, something I had always wanted to do but had pushed aside for the sake of my wife's preferences. I wanted to feel strong again, to reclaim my body and my confidence. The first few days were tough. I was out of shape and exhausted, but with each drop of sweat, I felt the weight of my heartbreak slowly lifting. I started to embrace the pain, using it as fuel to push through the workouts. I also sought therapy, a step I had resisted for too long. I needed someone to help me process the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. In those sessions, I learned to articulate my feelings, my anger, sadness, and confusion. I began to understand that it was okay to feel hurt and betrayed, but I didn't have to let those emotions define me. The therapist encouraged me to explore my identity outside of my relationship, to reconnect with who I was before I became a husband. As I poured my energy into self-improvement, I began to notice small changes in myself. I was more present, more engaged in the world around me. I started to smile again, even if it felt foreign at first. I took long walks, rediscovering the beauty of my neighborhood, breathing in the fresh air and letting the sun warm my skin. I reached out to friends, inviting them to join me for coffee or dinner, and slowly I felt the walls I had built around me begin to crumble. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer the man who had been betrayed. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger. I realized that this journey of healing was not just about moving on from the betrayal. It was about rediscovering myself and building a life that I could be proud of. I wanted to embrace joy again, to find happiness in the little things, and to create a life that was rich with experiences and connections. In that moment, I decided to take a leap of faith. I signed up for a painting class at a local community center, a small step toward reigniting a passion that had long been dormant. I felt a thrill of excitement at the thought of expressing myself through art, of allowing my emotions to flow onto the canvas. It was a way to channel the turmoil inside me into something beautiful, something that was uniquely mine. With each passing day, I could feel the weight of betrayal lifting, replaced by a sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming my life, brick by brick, and I was determined to build a future that was brighter than the past. I had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever came next. Rebuilding my life felt like constructing a new house on the foundation of what had once been. It was a process that required patience, effort, and a willingness to embrace change. As I delved deeper into my journey of self-discovery, I found myself taking steps that transformed not just my physical state, but my emotional and mental well-being as well. The first major change came through my commitment to fitness. I had joined the gym with a sense of determination, and I quickly fell into a routine. Early mornings became my sanctuary. I would wake up before dawn, lace up my sneakers, and head out into the quiet streets. The cool morning air filled my lungs as I jogged, feeling the rhythm of my heartbeat sync with the pounding of my feet against the pavement. Each run was cathartic, a way to release the pent-up frustration and sadness that had haunted me for too long. I hired a personal trainer who pushed me beyond my limits, encouraging me to lift weights I had never imagined I could handle. With each rep, I felt stronger, not just physically but emotionally. I began to see changes in my body, the reflection in the mirror showing a version of myself I had long forgotten. I was reclaiming my confidence, piece by piece, and it felt exhilarating. But physical transformation was just one part of the equation. I knew I needed to work on my mental health as well. Therapy became a crucial element of my rebuilding process. Each session was like peeling back layers of an onion, revealing the deep-seated emotions I had buried. I learned to confront my feelings of inadequacy and betrayal, to express my anger in healthy ways rather than letting it fester. My therapist encouraged me to embrace vulnerability, to recognize that it was a strength, not a weakness. Through therapy, I also began to explore mindfulness and meditation. I found solace in quiet moments, learning to sit with my thoughts without judgment. I started practicing daily meditation, allowing my mind to settle and find peace amidst the chaos. It was during these moments of stillness that I began to realize how far I had come, how much I had grown. The darkness that had once consumed me was slowly being replaced with a sense of clarity and purpose. As I continued to rebuild, I made a conscious effort to reconnect with my passions. My painting class became a beacon of light in my life. The first day was intimidating. I felt like a novice surrounded by artists who seemed to have it all figured out. But as I dipped my brush into vibrant colors and let my emotions guide my strokes, I found a sense of freedom. The canvas became a safe space for me to express my pain, my joy, and everything in between. I painted with abandon, not worrying about the final result but focusing on the act of creation itself. I learned to embrace imperfections, to see beauty in the chaotic strokes and colors that emerged on the canvas. Each painting became a reflection of my journey, a visual representation of my healing process. I discovered that art was not just a hobby, it was a powerful form of therapy, a way to process my emotions and tell my story. In addition to painting, I sought out new experiences. I joined a local book club, eager to engage with others who shared my love for literature. I found joy in discussing novels, exploring different perspectives, and forging connections with people who were also navigating their own journeys. I began to feel a sense of belonging, a reminder that I was not alone in my struggles. As I immersed myself in these new activities, I also made an effort to reconnect with old friends. I reached out to those I had lost touch with during my marriage, inviting them to grab coffee or share a meal. I felt nervous at first, unsure of how they would react to my situation, but each interaction was a reminder of the support system I had neglected. Friends rallied around me, offering encouragement and laughter, and I felt the warmth of their presence begin to heal the wounds of betrayal. Through all of this, I was learning what it meant to be truly alive. I was no longer just existing, I was thriving. I discovered a newfound appreciation for the small moments, watching the sunrise, savoring a good book, or simply enjoying a meal with friends. I realized that these moments were what life was truly about, and I was determined to embrace them fully. As I looked around at the life I was building, I felt a sense of pride swell within me. I had taken the pain of betrayal and transformed it into a catalyst for growth. I was becoming a man who embraced challenges, who faced the world with resilience and courage. I was no longer defined by my past. I was creating a vibrant future filled with possibilities. With each passing day, I felt more empowered, more alive. I was no longer just a husband who had been betrayed. I was an individual on a journey of self-discovery and transformation. I had taken the first steps toward rebuilding my life, and the horizon ahead was filled with promise. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself embracing my new life with a sense of enthusiasm I hadn't felt in ages. I had transformed my routine, filling it with activities that ignited my passions and allowed me to connect with others. I was no longer the shadow of the man I once was. I was becoming someone vibrant and alive, someone who was ready to seize new opportunities. One of the most significant changes was my involvement in the art community. My painting class led to an invitation to showcase my work at a local gallery. The thought of displaying my art felt both thrilling and terrifying. I had poured so much of my heart into those canvases, and the idea of sharing them with others made my stomach twist with anxiety. But I knew this was a chance to step outside my comfort zone, to embrace vulnerability in a new way. On the night of the gallery opening, I arrived early, my heart racing as I set up my pieces. The room was filled with vibrant colors, and I felt a rush of excitement as people began to filter in. I watched as strangers paused in front of my paintings, their expressions shifting from curiosity to contemplation. It was a surreal experience, witnessing my emotions reflected in their eyes. For the first time, I felt a sense of validation, a belief that my experiences, my pain and healing, could resonate with others. As the evening unfolded, I struck up conversations with fellow artists and art enthusiasts. I shared my story, how painting had become a form of therapy for me, a way to process my emotions after the betrayal. The connections I made that night were profound, reminding me that I wasn't alone in my struggles. Each conversation felt like a thread, weaving me into a new tapestry of life, one filled with creativity and camaraderie. Through this newfound community, I met Sarah, a fellow artist with a passion for painting landscapes. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love for art and our journeys of self-discovery. Sarah had her own story of heartbreak and resilience, and I found comfort in her understanding. Our friendship blossomed into something deeper as we explored the city together, visiting galleries, attending workshops, and sharing our artistic visions. I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in a long time: joy, laughter, and the thrill of connection. As our relationship grew, I began to open up about my past, about the betrayal that had once consumed me. Sarah listened without judgment, offering support and understanding. She encouraged me to embrace my journey, to see it as a part of my story rather than a defining moment. With her, I felt safe to explore the depths of my emotions, to share my fears and hopes for the future. I also continued to nurture my friendships with others, organizing game nights and casual get-togethers. My home became a space filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the silence that had once echoed through the walls. I realized that surrounding myself with loved ones was essential to my healing. Each interaction reminded me of the beauty of connection and the importance of community in rebuilding my life. As I embraced these new beginnings, I also began to consider the possibility of traveling, something I had always dreamed of doing but had put on hold. I started researching destinations, creating a list of places I wanted to explore. The thought of stepping outside my comfort zone and experiencing new cultures filled me with excitement. I longed to witness the beauty of the world, to immerse myself in adventures that would enrich my life and broaden my perspective. With Sarah's encouragement, I decided to take the leap. We planned a trip to Italy, a place known for its art, history, and breathtaking landscapes. The anticipation of traveling together sparked a sense of adventure in me. I felt alive, ready to embrace the journey ahead. As the departure date approached, I reflected on how far I had come. I had transformed my pain into passion, rebuilding my life with intention and purpose. The betrayal that had once shattered my world had become a catalyst for growth, leading me to discover my true self. I was no longer the man defined by loss. I was a man who had learned to thrive in the face of adversity. The trip to Italy was everything I had hoped for and more. We wandered through the streets of Florence, marveling at the art that surrounded us. We explored the picturesque landscapes of Tuscany, indulging in local cuisine and wine. Each moment felt like a celebration of life, a reminder of the beauty that exists in the world. As we stood atop a hill overlooking the rolling vineyards at sunset, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. I had taken the journey of healing, and I was finally at peace with my past. I had built a new life, filled with love, friendship, and artistic expression. The future felt bright and full of promise, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I turned to Sarah, who stood beside me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. In that moment, I knew that I had not only rebuilt my life but had also opened my heart to new possibilities. I was ready to create a future that was uniquely my own, one that celebrated resilience, love, and the beauty of new beginnings. As I reflect on this incredible journey, I am filled with a sense of awe at how far I've come. The man I was just a year ago feels like a distant memory, a shadow of someone who was lost in despair and betrayal. Now I stand here, stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace life with open arms. The events that once threatened to consume me have instead become the foundation upon which I have rebuilt my life. The lessons I learned throughout this process are invaluable. I have come to understand that love, while beautiful, can also be a source of profound pain. Betrayal can shatter trust and leave scars, but it can also ignite a fire within you, a fire that can fuel transformation and growth. I learned to embrace my vulnerability, to see it not as a weakness but as a strength that allows me to connect with others and share my story. I have learned the importance of self-discovery. In the aftermath of my wife's betrayal, I was forced to confront who I was outside of my relationship. I discovered passions I had set aside and forged connections with people who uplift me. I found solace in art, fitness, and community, and I learned that my happiness is not dependent on someone else. I am capable of creating my own joy, my own purpose. The friendships I've nurtured have become a vital part of my life. They remind me of the power of connection, of being surrounded by people who support and encourage me. I no longer feel alone in my struggles. I have a network of individuals who celebrate my victories and stand by me during difficult times. Each laugh shared, each conversation had, has reinforced the idea that life is meant to be experienced with others, and I cherish the relationships I've built. As for Sarah, she has become a beacon of light in my life. Our relationship blossomed from friendship into something deeper, and I have learned to love again. With her, I feel a sense of ease, a connection that is rooted in understanding and shared experiences. She has shown me that it is possible to embrace love once more, to open my heart to the beauty of new beginnings. Together, we create art, explore new places, and support each other in our individual journeys. I am grateful for the love we share and the way it enriches my life. Looking ahead, I am filled with hope and excitement for the future. I have plans to travel more, to explore new cultures and experiences that will continue to shape me. I want to dive deeper into my art, to experiment with new techniques and mediums, and perhaps even host my own exhibition one day. I want to continue nurturing my relationships, to be present for my friends and loved ones, and to build a life that is rich in connection and meaning. Ultimately, I have learned that resilience is not just about enduring hardships, it's about rising from them, transforming pain into strength. I refuse to let my past define me. Instead, I choose to see it as a chapter in my story, one that has shaped me into the person I am today. I am not just a man who was betrayed. I am a man who has learned to thrive, to love, and to embrace the beauty of life. As I stand on the precipice of this new chapter, I am filled with gratitude for the journey that has brought me here. I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next, to continue growing and evolving. Life is a canvas, and I am the artist, ready to paint it with all the colors of my experiences. I have built a better future for myself, one that is filled with hope, love, and resilience. And as I move forward, I carry with me the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the unwavering belief that I am capable of creating the life I desire. This is not just the end, it is a beautiful beginning. Thank you for following my journey.